everyone. We're going to paint this marshy, foggy heron in a silhouette with a really loose style as just a morning warm-up. I chose a really muted palette, although it's slightly different from the reference photo, which I'll add at the top. Note that my reference photo is vertical, but we're going to paint a horizontal. So again, I'm not trying to be that accurate to the photo. I'm just trying to convey the feeling. You'll notice my paper is quite wet, and when I started the heron, I noticed I was getting too much bleed, so I kind of backed off. It's happening to me throughout this painting, but because it's so foggy in the reference photo, I really don't mind. And if I don't get enough of the bleed, then I'll just kind of blend it in with a flat wash brush. And when I tried the palette knife here, I thought I was going to really like the effect, but it was kind of too sharp for something that should appear in the background. So, sometimes that happens, and, I just kind of moved on, and I'll use my flat brush here and just sort of blend it out, which is no big deal. And that's why I love watercolor. up the values. I've gone in kind of heavy with that middle section, which I'll have to knock back down before I finish, but I'm hoping that putting more details on the outside and in the heron, when I add in some darker tones, it'll make it look like the back is receding like it should. So bear with me. I wrap, I'll just share a couple thoughts. I wish I had used a little more of the Rose of Ultramarine just to give that nice little purple glow right on the horizon line. So I might go in and add that as a glaze over the top, but overall I like the neutral palette. And my only other comment was I think I went a little too heavy on that middle section. I noted it as I was painting. If it was just a little bit softer, I think the edges would pop really nicely. But, you know, I always try to rush these, you know, wet on wet sections. I'm anxious to get painting the details, and I just need to be more patient. So thanks for painting along, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like or share this video, and by all means subscribe to the channel. Have a great day.